Aloha. Today I wanted to talk about the relationship that we have with each other that is largely based upon the relationships that we have with ourselves and the relationships that we have with our families, and trace that back to the out of balance natures of the way women are treated, the way races are treated, and the way this system has been operating for centuries. Tracing back as far as I can go into the origins of what's really going on here, when we see people dying on the streets, largely because of the relationships that happen inside the home, and tracing that back even further because of the ways the society has been creating a space that is based upon destruction, separation, and the keeping down of, it's the divide and conquer program on the soul level. So the divide and conquer program that we see with races, and the divide and conquer program that we see with the way politics is, it originates first within the balances of nature between you and your divine masculine and divine balance, divine masculine and divine feminine balance. That in itself is a manifestation down the line of your parents' relationships with themselves, their divine selves, their divine balance, and then their relationship of out of balance natures with each other, creating as much of a stable relationship as they can to provide a situation where you as the child are going to be successful in some kind of way based upon the level of consciousness of society. So the way we understand ourselves, the way we understand each other, will be a reflection of how we raise our children and the relationships we have with our children and our family as a whole. The relationship that you have with your children is a reflection of the relationship that you had with your parents, and so on and so forth. That is largely how the expansion of consciousness either happens or doesn't happen. I mean, it happens regardless, but the control measures that are being manipulated on the soul, mind, and body level that we don't really pay attention to because we're caught up in the dualistic system of divide and conquer is largely based upon the three-layered chess game that's being played on the psychological warfare, the spiritual warfare, and the physical warfare, and what that does to us, what that does to our relationship with ourselves, our higher mind, our higher spirit, nature, the balances of nature, each other, culture, your family. All of this is a shockwave down. And as long as we get caught up in the checker games that are being promoted by people like Bill Maher, like I said in the last video, this is the alchemy of how they keep that system alive. To bombard you with distraction, to bombard you with limited perspectives, to bombard you with desensitization. That's mostly what that last video was all about. He was creating a scenario that desensitizes you to your emotional body. It's like deprogramming the emotional body and installing this callous, empty nature with illusions, with labels that they call like political correctness and so on and so forth. Like this is, they create an illusion for you, and then they beat down that illusion, and then you subconsciously close the gaps on what the inherent nature of that illusion represents. So when you are laughing at jokes that are on the Bill Maher show and so on and so forth, that when he's talking about Native Americans, you're inherently adopting, subconsciously, you're adopting the desensitization program that is largely parasiting off of the Aboriginal relationship to land, the Aboriginal history, the storylines that exist beyond the Columbian era, the storylines that exist beyond what we're told is supposed to be our reality. And when you see today these social media is designed to expand that sort of, like, you can see the trend and the alchemy of the Bill Maher show. Social media as a whole is designed to maintain the divide and conquer program of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the true balances of nature. And the main thing that they have to do, just like you have to go in order, before racism, there was first sexism, to destroy the balances internally and externally. So what's happening now is the expansion of the destruction of the feminine design. So you have side effects to this. And this is what I wanted to focus on with this video, are the side effects to a divine feminine essence growing up in a completely out of balance and masculine design, and how that affects not only the men, or not only the women, but the men at the same time. And then how that affects society and culture, and how that's expressed in society and culture. And there's no getting away from it. This is how we learn. This is how we expand. This is the alchemy of our basic familial relationships with each other. Any work that you haven't done, any work that you have ran away from, will be thrown back in your face with your children, because you are still living as that energy still exists inside your reality. You can't run away from any of the responsibilities that your soul has largely chosen to experience in this reality. And the fail-safe for that, for lack of a better terminology, is to have your children, who are going to be a part of your life, reflect that for you, whether it's directly or indirectly in their experience, or literally throwing it in your face, however it is. And it's up to us to realize what our real balances are, and to really get engaged in our reality and start living, being alive, because we're not alive when we're just surviving. If you're constantly just surviving, then that's kind of like the centerpiece of what I've been explaining in the last videos about what happens to the divine feminine when you're locked into a one version of reality, and what happens to humanity overall. So you just get out of balance. So it's not even the divine masculine that's gaining power or control. It's the illusion. It's the artificial ego of the divine masculine, which is the patriarchal program, being pawned off as strong, and so on and so forth. But to get back to what I was saying, my point of how it affects the entire human consciousness, is that there is a very definite difference between the animal consciousness and the human consciousness. There is something there. There's a meaning and a purpose that is very different between those two. So when you adopt the monkey mind evolution programming, then you're buying into the animalistic consciousness. And the way you can downgrade your human nature to an animal consciousness is with these illusions. And in order to adopt these illusions, you have to first be out of balance. Because if you're completely in balance, then or at least aware of that balance, then you won't subject yourself to an imbalanced reality. So centuries over centuries over centuries have been dedicated towards keeping us imbalanced and focused on a version of reality that has nothing to do with true humanity. Nothing to do with it. It's a movie reel that's being played. So for this video, I just wanted to share these images and show how this has affected humanity, and largely has manifested into the feminine design, the feminine program, which are the mothers of your future generations. So this is how your future generations are being affected by there's always something in the background that's really loud anyway. So your future generations, control wise, your future generations are manipulated by the compartmentalized nature of who and what we are. So if they separate the internal divine feminine and the divine masculine from the individual, that manifests into the family. That manifests into, later on down the line, the mother being separated from the father, which is largely what's happening in the inner cities when you have a lot of single mothers raising children, which is why you have such an extreme this is very a part of the inner city community, the so-called minorities, or the Aboriginal Americans, which is it's the powerhouse of the United States, of the Americas, really, the melanated people, and all across the earth plane. The illusion of the supremacy program is only kept alive by being separated from who and what you are. So when we call ourselves minorities, when we call ourselves black, when we call ourselves African American, you're not truly tapping into who and what you are. So that's how the race program works, which is just an expansion of the divide and conquer program of separating the divine feminine from the divine masculine. So the individual is broken. The family is broken. Those broken families create broken children, and those broken children can be controlled. And those broken children, families, and cultures they have no foundation. So now they adopt the artificial foundation, which is the status quo of our society. And this is when you have, from the divine feminine aspect of our relationships with ourselves and each other, you have women raising their children from the perspective of a patriarchal program and an out of balanced masculine system. And even the women who are so-called strong in that reality are programmed to base their strength off of the perspective of masculine strength, the actual strength that is the divine feminine, the essence of the power of each character, the power of the essence of each individual, the essence of the divine feminine. It has nothing to do with your body. It has nothing to do with how you look. It has nothing to do with that. And what happens is that we lose contact with our true energy, our true essence, because we've overall been raised by women who have been out of balance themselves, and now raise, those children now are raising, you can see how it layers on top of itself. Now those out of balance layers are now multiplied on the soul level in the next generation of children, all the way down the line, down the line, down the line. Now multiply that times slavery. Multiply that times the psychological warfare that has is a result of slavery, is a result of the supremacy program, is a result of beating down of the divine feminine. See how out of balance and destructive this program really is. See how out of balance and how this system could be used to control us, the have-nots. Because that's what it boils down to, the haves and the have-nots. The reasons why this divide and conquer program exists is so you can maintain the illusions that maintain the society based upon haves and have-nots, the artificial kings and the artificial queens and the artificial demigods based upon illusory systems. So we lose contact with, we lose the essence of what a real man really is. We lose the essence of what a real woman really is. And when that happens over so many generations, then it starts to affect the children and so on and so forth. So that's basically what I wanted to focus on in this video, is that until these perspectives get addressed, until these realities until we start paying attention to this that exists and balancing out the relationships that we have with each other and ourselves, we won't be able to see what really is the side effect to all of these things that have happened. See, and when you don't focus on that reality, you start to adopt out of balance nature. And you call that human nature. See, this is where the normalization program comes in and starts to take over the natural design. This is where the synthetic program takes over the natural design, because initially, in order for that to happen, you have to adopt an illusory storyline and then activate that into your reality. And in that gap, that lack of balance of every layer of the relationships that people have with each other and themselves, this is where transhumanism and technology and social media comes to save the day and fill those gaps. This is where everything that you are faced with every day comes to fill the gaps, and you don't have time to trace back where these imbalances come from and what they really mean and what their side effects are, because the status quo is largely based upon being imbalanced and being self-destructive and being the victim and being everything that is a side effect to largely a system that is abusive. It's an abusive relationship. So your relationship that you have with human nature that is based upon imbalanced realizations is abusive from the human consciousness perspective. To downgrade the reality of the divine human essence to an animalistic consciousness with the monkey mind evolution is an abusive nature. It's abusive reality. And that last video that I was explaining, the alchemy of the television, you can see how those programs are organized to desensitize you. So like for people who are thinking I'm being oversensitive or something right now, largely because people don't really understand the depths of the imbalanced nature that's going on and how this really affects us. When we're desensitized, we have no understanding of what compassion is. We have no understanding of what empathy is. And largely, if you're desensitized, you don't know what balance is, because the balances don't really matter, because you can't feel anything. You don't know what feeling is. Everything has been covered up by a scab or a Band-Aid. Either way, it's the same thing. You're not feeling anything. You don't know what that is. So words and terms like political correctness come into view, and those are beat down to allow the artificial masculine program to be accepted as the end all be all of how we should experience our reality. So you have pieces of shit like Bill Maher who are on having a show every day trying to manipulate your consciousness to think like he thinks with emotional body bullying and emotional body triggering through comedy, laughter, fear, because he's full of fear. He's just a scary little child, ultimately a little high school kid at best that's trying to dominate how people think from a political or largely just a supremacist colonial perspective. That's taking it to the extreme, but I can sit for 3 hours explaining how he speaks, how that really represents the colonial design as a whole. So back to the feminine side effects to that, which are the foundations of how we raise our children, the women, the mother energy, the divine feminine energy, how that's affected when you, and this goes back to like what I'll probably address it later, but I was going to explain like how the heliocentric model as a whole is a patriarchal program. It's a out of balance design in reference to how they focus on the explosion. So the Big Bang is basically just the explosion of like sperm. That's how they're telling you this universe was created. It's like masculinity. That's what happened. And shut up. All you need to focus on is that's the Big Bang. We are all a representation of what happens when the male ejaculates. You are just star stuff, sperm stuff, and that's all you need to focus on. And they tell you all this. They just science the shit out of the patriarchal perspective of the universe, and they install all of these artificial theories and then tell you, this is what it, and then they keep your focus on stuff like the light. Like it's the out of balanceness. It goes back, and I'll get into this later in the video, but it's the worship of light at the expense of darkness and the demonization of darkness. When you understand the balances of nature, you will realize that darkness is not bad. It's only bad in reference to the God, the artificial God that gets created from an out of balance patriarchal program that's focusing on one-sided reality, which is light, which is why they talk about the speed of light, which is what triggered this video largely is I was watching this stupid Life Noggin video or something where they were talking about the speed of light, the speed of light, the speed of light, the speed of light. And I was thinking like, the speed of light isn't everything, but everything in NASA is focused on that. Everything in the university system is focused on that. All these quantum physicist assholes are all, creating that focus to expand this future bullshit. Anyway, the speed of light really is a side effect to what came first, which is largely the speed of darkness. You cannot have light unless you have experience the existence first. See, you can't have, I'll just break it down simply. You're looking at speed and light. What is that speed and light relative to? What is that speed and light being observed on? See, when you see that, the darkness is first, and it has a meaning that has nothing to do ultimately from the natural perspective of bad and evil. This is just the side effects to the out of balance nature, largely, like I said, to worship the masculine design. You have to have the understanding of existence to measure speed and measure light. So the speed of darkness is existence that allows the light to have an experience. So before you even get to quantify the speed of light or even try to understand what that really means, you have to first understand the existence of the darkness, the platform of experience, which is the feminine design. So this is the balance of this conscious and the subconscious, the light and the dark, the electric and the magnetic. In order to have an experience, you have to have first a plane of existence. And this is where the heliocentric model comes in to separate you from your earth mother. So the globe model, the heliocentric model, is largely just a sperm. That's what the earth is. They've turned the earth mother into a sperm. And the sperm is like, when you understand how they're saying we're hurling through space at however long, going somewhere, doing something. So just imagine the globe. It's going to have a tail. So it looks just like a sperm. And the origin of that sperm being shot out of existence, it's a dick, pretty much. That's what it is. You're patriarchal worship. You're in an out of balance light worshiping system at the expense of darkness. So this is why you have the mainstream religions who are demonizing darkness and creating that, because that's the only way you can control people, is if you keep them out of balance and in fear, low vibrations, animalistic consciousness. And the expansion of that is to have, since you have such resilient and strong people, men and women, the women are adopting that masculine nature and saying stuff like, sometimes it takes balls to be a woman, and like, we're strong too. We're strong. We're not soft. We're equal to men. And this is where the equality deception comes in, because equality is largely only in reaction to the imbalanced society. You don't need to focus on equality when you understand the balances of nature, when you realize the beauty of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and the beauty of the differences, the diversity of why things are the way they are, why you have a woman and why you have a man, and why those same balances in nature are expressed in everything that you experience. See, equality is only a side effect to an imbalanced, unequal society on every level. The heliocentric model is probably like one of the earliest levels of keeping the divide and conquer program, keeping you to destroy your balances, your understandings of reality as a whole. So all of this woman march shit, all this stuff that's going on, it's largely based upon the imbalanced natures. And you have women who are trying to be equal. And when they're trying to be equal in an imbalanced patriarchal program, they're largely trying to be men. So you have when you have women trying to be men, subconsciously, energetically, they might feel like they're trying to be women and all this other stuff. But when you're trying to be equal to a man, you're not equal. You are a woman. You have strength that isn't the same as what a man's strength is. So when you understand that exists, you will understand that there is no equality. The equality is in your existence. So if it's in your existence, then it really doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be spoken of as equal, because you are a completely different, a beautifully different individual. But when you translate that so-called equality into this experience that is largely out of balance, then you have broken what is that, like short circuits. That's what it is. It's like short circuit systems. And this is where these band-aids come in. And this is where the abusive nature comes in, because you have men who are more empowered and facing women like they're men. So you have men who are beating the shit out of women, and then you have women who are beating the shit out of men because they're both largely out of balance completely. This is the abusive side effect that is largely manifesting in different ways, individually, in relationships, in the family, in the culture, in the society, and on the earth plane as a whole. It exists in some kind of way. So you have this battered woman syndrome from a human perspective, to where you have unmet needs and unresolved issues, which could be seen as like the human resources that are filtered through the monetary system, the out of balance understanding of who and what you are culturally, the supremacy program as a whole. You don't know who and what you are. That's a need that you need. That's something that you are. You need that understanding in order to be balanced. And if you don't understand that, if you don't understand what a woman is, and you don't understand what a man is, and you don't understand what an Aboriginal American is, then you are setting the foundation to be controlled. And that's by design. And then the side effects to that are anxiety, insecurity, depression. This all exists on a societal scale, going down to seeking love as a solution. Then you have people who are doing this shit. This is the side effect to seeking love as a solution. This bullshit ass version, this attention worshiping, is perfect for the system, because it's just further pushing women and the divine feminine essence out of balance and keeping them in that destructive mentality of needing attention and calling that love. And you can see how it affects generations of people. Like you have like how women were treated back in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and 50s and all the way, just like you can see how that's changed, and that shift in consciousness has been manipulated to express itself in the image that you see on the right. And since social media is now the common exchange of communication, now since you have broken people, you have those gaps in reality being filled by technology, by social media, that lack of love of self largely, and lack of love in relationships are being filled by a synthetic version of love, which is this sexualization of both men and women, but largely women, to maintain and expand that separation program. On the male side, you have the effeminization of men, to where you have this is why you have the gay agenda exists the way it does, is because, and it's so amplified by the mainstream media, because that is largely, it's a design to keep imbalanced natures going on and adjust you into the so-called normal perspective. Like I said in previous videos, it's not to come down on anybody in the LGBT community or anything. I'm speaking in reference to the difference between that which is normal and that which is natural. That which is normal is this out of balanced relationship that we have with each other and ourselves. You will have side effects. Those side effects are being amplified by the system to maintain dominance and control over everybody, men, women, and children, culture and society. So this is why the normalization program is expanded and the relationship to nature is destroyed, literally destroying the rainforest and everything that you are that is natural. So this is abusive. This is an abusive relationship that women have with themselves. It's no different than like I said in the last video or video before last, we're still in 1930, 1920. Psychologically and in reference to human consciousness, not much has changed. It's just gotten a different face. So that artificial version of seeking love has been just like this superficial version of relationships and love that is, expanded by the marriage and reproduction program and bullshit interactions with each other like Valentine's Day. Just empty, dead, just completely hollowed out versions of what love really is, hollowed out versions of what a man really is, hollowed out versions of what a woman really is. And it just gets expanded on further and further. In fact, social media and technology expedites that process because you have more inputs every day. How many times a day do people look at social media? That, and understand that that's a mind control program. How is that affecting people individually and overall the human consciousness in relation to what it was like when you only had like Saved by the Bell on television and Friends and Seinfeld and all these movies that came out every now and again on VHS, which took like 6 months for a movie to come out on video. Now videos are now it's in the movie theater and straight to video, like within a few months. So that's a psychological mind control. That's the psychological warfare that's being expedited. It's happening like that in reference to the expansion of consciousness. So when you see these babies who are super smart, that is why you have the expedited versions of mind control programming that's going on, is because naturally, which is always first, we are doing this expansion naturally. It has nothing to do with technology. Ultimately, technology is largely being used as a way to suppress the expansion of human consciousness and expand the divide and conquer program. So you have this seeking love as a solution, then finding temporary relief. Then you can go to, you can do that with these shitty ass relationships, Band-aids that are placed on relationships, Band-aids that are placed on internal relationships. And social media is also a temporary relief. It's a distraction, desensitization, just to get by. Wake up the next day and do it again in another style. Pleasing and appeasing your partner. You're doing this with yourself. You're doing this with friends, family, trying to do something that you think is the way it's supposed to be. And the status quo of that reality is largely out of balance. So if you have people trying to be like trying to make an out of balance relationship work on a human scale, on a societal scale, on a cultural scale, then that's just an expansion of the program. So a partner is controlling and abusive. This is the relationship, like I explained in the bad guy, good guy scenario, where you have the President Trump who does this, or even Obama. They do something really good and then they do something, or really good in reference to that program. It's largely just bullshit. But they do good things and then they do bad things. They play the good cop and the bad cop. They play the villain and the superhero. And largely because they're in control and you've been manipulated by all these movies to always hope for the superhero to win, and then they actually do in these movies, then you translate that into reality. So this is why we are bombarded by action movies, abusive storylines, the horror genre, and all these other programs that are designed to keep you thinking and acting a certain way. It's controlling, it's abusive, and it manifests. You see these movies, you see the politics, you see the relationship between you and teachers. You see the relationship between the church and its followers. You see the relationship that humanity has with history. It doesn't look at this stuff that has happened. Just like in relationships, they don't look at things in order to keep the relationship going. But once you start looking at this stuff, that's when actual change starts to happen. That lack of looking is abusive. And it goes into angry and afraid and withdrawn. This is where people shut down and they just say, well, I'm just going to go to work. I'm just going to take care of go to work and take care of my basic human needs, take care of my kids, keep my head down, stay successful in the world, get my money right, get all that bullshit that gets put out by the egotistical version of experiencing reality. And that's largely anger. Internally, people are angry. Internally, people are afraid. Why this information, like the stuff that I speak about on my channel and other people speak about, why it's not hip, why it's not trendy, why it's not cool and popular and all that other shit, is because largely the subconscious vibration of humanity is still based upon fear. This animalistic consciousness, fear of your slave masters, fear of not being accepted, fear of being beat down psychologically by the status quo. This is all fear. And this is anchored in the animalistic consciousness and the out of balance natures of reality and so on and so forth. See, and then it gets overcompensated we overcompensate our experience, like when you have these giant egomaniacal men who have to dominate the conversation or dominate their women or dominate. This is what video games are. This is because it's largely hiding this anger. It's largely hiding what's internally. It's being acted out. You are able to act out what you are not able to speak about. So we are being desensitized and manipulated to handle our situation and our anger from a space of separation and a space of pretty much non-engagement overall. Then you have people who are seeking reconciliation. So this is the political scene. You could see this as Democrats and Republicans. How I explained how you have the ups and downs of politics and how that's just acted out largely in order to control the population. So you had the piece of shit of George Bush Sr. and that whole wartime thing. Then you had the upkick of Bill Clinton, and he was such a cool guy. He went on Arsenio Hall. He plays the saxophone. He's such a cool, charismatic guy. Then you had the piece of shit George W. Bush, the little guy that sent you into the war on terrorism. And then you just had 8 years of garbage. Then you had Barack Obama. He's our first black president. Oh my goodness, sending more drones all over the place. But he's the first black president, so it's all gravy, baby. We're really changing. Everything is just wonderful. I love America. Now you got Donald Trump. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Existing in the future, selling you the future so you will never pay attention to what's happening right now in the moment. And you sure as hell won't look at how this moment was created in the first place. Not understanding your history. This is why Trump was out there saying on the platform of Make America Great Again. They didn't make Donald Trump president. They made what he was saying president. They made his idea, Make America Great Again. That's what's president. That's who is the president right now. So they can just do whatever the hell they want and say that's greatness. And they have the patsy of Donald Trump to just have you focused on an individual when it's the system itself that is largely destroying everything. And since all of your focus is on Donald Trump and on the checker game, then you will never understand the system as a whole. So things get back to normal. This is what happens with all of the politics and everything. It's the up and down. It's the having to just constantly put Band-Aids, and it's only normal. Like I said, it doesn't get back to natural because you yourself hasn't changed. So, and sure as hell the relationship isn't going to change. So it isn't going to get back to natural. It's only going to get back to normal if you are lost in that normal vibration, normalization. Then it goes back to the up and, like I said, the up and down. Then you have the crash again, the unmet needs and unresolved issues. This is the abusive relationship that we have with ourselves, with our partners, with our children, with our culture, with the earth, with the stars, and with the sun and the moon. It's an abusive relationship. And the side effects are shit like this. The over-sexualization in order to close the gaps of not having any love, not having any affection, not being seen for who and what we are, both men and women. Largely women, because this is a patriarchal program, and the women have to go extra. They have to be extra in order to be equal. Men got it easy in a sense, because of the focus of the system is to keep the divine feminine aspect down, because the whole universe is based upon the masculine design. So this is why you have all these men presidents and all these like worshiping of these people, and then like manipulating of how you experience this reality, and worshiping people like Beyonce, and then she's largely out there just showing her ass, and then there's no depth to her on a divine feminine basic, like a basic divine feminine essence. She's largely worshipped by her looks. And then people will defend that to the umpteenth degree. Oh, well, she gets him. No. Give me a break. Break it down energetically. And then the next step after that, after you beat the shit out of the woman, and then you have the divine feminine that is just completely shrunk down, stuck in a cave, and it can only experience love from a sexual perspective, from an overcompensation of affection through the physical worship, then, and that's normal, that's being carried out by the society as a whole, then you can break it down to races. So this is what happens like in this image. Subconsciously, you don't really see this stuff. It's being caught. Like, people are catching this shit now and seeing it more so. I'm just bringing it to the surface and talking about it because I'm seeing people catch it. I can't catch it all by myself. I'm an interpreter of this information. So people are largely catching it because we have to first understand that it exists before we can actually see it. So now that it's being seen, then we can start processing this energy and this information so we don't become subject to it, and then start bringing balance back to who and what we are internally and externally, in our families, in our relationship with our children, in culture, society, so on and so forth. But big stuff like the separation from technology, just to utilize it for what it is, but to really be anchored in the natural perspective. The heliocentric model is designed to separate you from nature, ultimately. So once you have the divine feminine, the basic nature, the conscious and the subconscious separated, so you have your subconscious reality dominated, and now it's being programmed through every experience. Now you can start to amplify one version and then also start to expand that same storyline into the other various versions of separation, which are differences of culture and peoples, and demonizing that by saying, this is better. So that you have people changing their noses to look a certain way, changing their hair color. You have cultural appropriation to water everything down, stealing everything, and then calling that normal. That's how it's supposed to be. That's what that last video was about. Bill Maher is a master of that, making you think and act a certain way. So just as much as they called the woman dirty, and because of her cycles, and they're the reason that humanity fell and all this other shit. The same thing, the same programming affects races in the actual definitions that we adopt as who and what we are. This is all to cloud, like the cloud to cloud, the relationship that women have with the divine feminine understanding. The same thing happens with the way so-called black people have no understanding of their origins here as the Aboriginal Americans and all across the earth plane. And we're only subjected to the colonial version of reality. So you think of yourself subconsciously as deplorable, heinous, iniquitous, ominous, outrageous, portentous, scandalous. You subconsciously think this way. And you're so desensitized that you say, I'm black, I'm African American, I'm Negro, I'm boy, I'm coon, I'm this, I'm that. That is the side effect to the abusive relationship that is largely accepted in society. But now it's being seen for what it is. So people are keeping it under wraps and then have just ways to deal with it. So it removes from the separation from men and women and the divine feminine and the divine masculine to races. And then you have stuff that lasts forever because it's got its tentacles in everything. So you have like how the mainstream religion is connected to the separation of nature and people from the universal perspective, like the heliocentric model. Then you have people worshiping the Bible, which is like another patriarchal program. And we can't even break that largely because of how wonderful, like the same way people say, technology has done so much for humanity and so forth. Like, you'd be an idiot or an asshole to say anything about technology, especially if you're talking on technology. So people use that as like something to go against you as. The same thing happens with like the Bible. And like it's written by men. Like as beautiful as everything that's in there, it's inherently out of balance. That's where I'm coming from. If we were to really understand the balances of nature, it wouldn't need to be as complex as stuff that's in like the various mainstream styles of understanding, not to mention the fact that it's all written by men. So it's inherently out of balance. I don't give a shit how amazing it is. It can be the most amazing, beautiful thing. And I'm not saying it's bad. What I'm saying is that it's inherently out of balance. That's where I'm coming from. So until we address that, we'll just be spinning our wheels. So like this quote says, the Bible teaches that women brought sin and death into the world. I don't believe that any man ever talked with God. This is all this individual saying, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. I don't know who she is. I like this quote. She says, the Bible was written by man out of his love of domination. This is how society is, to dominate. More people have been killed in the name of religion, in the name of the Bible and other religious books than anything. That is the essence of the out of balance nature of this patriarchal system that is glorified by the heliocentric model and the university system and the war, the military industrial complex, prison industrial complex, and so on and so forth. It's about dominating humanity. And then you have people hating themselves and destroying themselves. And as much as I talk about the supremacy program, what's even worse than that is when you have people of the same culture, the same cultural backgrounds, who are brothers largely. This is why you have black on black crime is actually more dangerous than anything else that's going on, because that's the extension of all of this separation. So it's not any one thing, it's all of these at the same time. You can address them from whatever perspective you want. But the end game factor is that people are killing themselves and killing each other because of how imbalanced this system is. And like I said, I can only focus on so many things at one time. But my focus is to trace it back as far as it goes. And until we start addressing the the real essence of what the divine feminine is and the real essence of what the divine masculine is, we'll just be fucking around, spinning wheels, talking shit. It won't be worth anything, because you'll still be, if we don't address the entire system, you'll just be existing inside of a box. And people will just continue to expand that program, because this is what this abusive relationship does. It affects you on every level. So these are like examples of how the program affects individuals by balancing themselves on one side of the scale. So completely, we don't understand the magnetic field. We don't understand. There's no real relationship to the divine feminine. And there's really no real relationship to the divine masculine, because you can't have a deep relationship with either one unless you have a deep relationship with both of them. It's one story. It's one system. This is why there's no humanity. We don't even know what human nature is, because we don't know what humanity is, because largely people still think they're a fucking monkey consciousness, animalistic consciousness. And then what's even further is that the main thing that people are calling themselves focusing on, like the balances of nature is, or the imbalances of nature, is the parasitic program. So they blow that up. It's like, oh, we're helping the rainforest. Bill Gates is giving vaccines to kids in Africa. He's fucking killing and paralyzing kids in Africa, firstly. And then now they want to make a big deal out of it. Like it's like, no, there's an intention behind that. So since you are lost in the animalistic consciousness, then we think that we need to focus on the parasitic consciousness. And you're largely just being sucked into believing that this is what it's all about. And it's not. We have to first start to fix the foundations, address the foundations, understand that this is an abusive relationship that we have with ourselves and with each other, with nature as a whole. So this is where on the left side you have the earth and the water, the destroying of the oceans, the lack of understanding of what earth is. And on the right you have the air and the fire. That's the masculine. So the masculine is what? Burning everything up. Out of control fire. Out of control fire. And since the system is worshipped, that air just adds fuel to that fire. So you see, just under that, you have water, earth, and then you have work in. That's the internal space. This is why on the right side, the masculine design, the work out, the physical reality, the physical, that's like the conscious, the divine masculine, and the subconscious, the divine feminine. How I see it is that you have so many people focus on the externalized reality and don't know what it means to go inward, have no understanding what that is. This is why you have women so focusing on getting a nice ass or working out on their whatever it is, doing squats, all this other bullshit. It's all like trying to be extra womanly. To be an extra super woman based upon how big your ass is and how big your breasts are and how much makeup you have on. Self-destructive natures. No creation. Only the illusion of transformation. This is what the focus on the future is. The heliocentric model. Selling you NASA, selling you CERN, selling you SpaceX, selling you hope, selling you change. That's the illusion of transformation. But you never actually create anything. This is what Bill Maher was saying in the last video about cultural appropriation. He was basically saying cultural appropriation doesn't exist. It's really just how things are. People just steal things and make them quote unquote better, or whatever it is. He's just defending the colonial program. saying that's just the way things are. And you're in America. Don't you know that's the way things work? That's how they work? Whatever. So, yeah, industry. No focus on nature. All focus on industry. All focus on science. No understanding of spirituality. This is what alchemy is. True science balanced with the true understanding and manifestation of spirit. We have been de-alchemized. Completely thrown out of balance. Largely, we've been silenced. And in silence, you can hear more. But when it's the side effect to an abusive relationship, you also use that to escape because of the fear. So it's basically what I wanted to share with this video. Hopefully the tape is still rolling. But yeah, thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.